or she may have decided she doesn't want to. I get it. Before I streamed a lot, I wasn't comfortable going live when I hadn't streamed before. It took a while to get used to that. So, oh, Sheila, is that you? Okay, Sheila is back. Hey, all right, hang on one second. Okay, Sheila, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you for having me. I was actually looking for a good part in my apartment to that had good lighting, so I ended up using the bathroom. So sorry for the delay.
No, not a problem. I wasn't sure if you lost connection or if you decided you didn't want to go live after all. Um,
No,
but yeah, I mean, I've seen your comments on TikTok a lot when we get into these Biden versus Trump wars. It's always funny to
yeah,
see you.
it's so funny. I'm a Trump supporter and I have my own reasons, but that is not the number one reason why I follow you. It's your videos on marrying Filipinos and I know your channel is based encourages men to go and try these Filipino women if their chances or if their options are bad here in
Mhm.
America. And I follow just to listen because I'd rather listen to men talking than women talking because men kind of like make sense. And I want to know why men are choosing to go outside as opposed to us who are single and we're here. So I'm just I'm a fly on the wall,
Okay.
basically. Yeah.
No, well, I am always happy to share. I mean, I tried to create something that is inclusive. So I focus on men mainly because kind of to where you were going. I don't necessarily expect the women to listen, and I'm not going to be one who's going back and forth with them. I'm just going to say, look, I'm a guy. This is kind of what I'm looking for. If you want to argue about whether I should look for it or not, that's one thing, but I'm not going to listen. Like, I want something specific. If I can find it, then I'll be happy. If I can't, I'm going to keep shopping until I find it. Um, I think that I think that most guys are looking for something that's fairly straightforward. It's just very hard to find it in America. And I don't women don't really understand the men's point of view on it, which is why I said, look, this is a men's show. If women don't want to listen, if they don't want to get it, that's fine. They don't have to, but this is for the guys. And I mean, I can tell you, I mean, we'll kind of peel back the layers of the onion here. So this will be fun. Also, you're in New Jersey. What part of New Jersey are you in? I saw you say Jersey.
Yeah, Somerset. I'm one of your. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a background.
Okay.
I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. I first and foremost I come in peace, so I'm not here to argue about women being better in America than the Filipino women. I support and respect the decision. Um, but I listen just to hear what I like male-centered podcasts. I think they are much more fun and educative. I learned so much from male podcasts. So I've been following you. You went live last Tuesday and I missed it. And I came about 30 minutes later. I was like, oh man, I missed my favorite topic. So I decided to join in today, even though today's topic is different. I
Hmm.
wanted to join in today just to see if there's still a chance for me for me to hear you guys talk about the dating outside of America. But if it's not, I will respectfully bow out. But if you have a chance to answer my questions or help me understand certain things, that would be great.
Sure.
My name is Sheila. I'm 42. I live in Somerset, New Jersey. I am divorced mother of four.
Okay.
Um, and I co-parent well with my ex and all that good stuff. We There's no animosity and everything is working out great. So the reason why I started following you is because you went on the Kendra show, and I was one of the people that hit you up on the Kendra show. And
Wow, that was a while ago.
it was, and I've been a fan since. Because I respected your decision, but I did not meet your qualifications, and
Okay.
that's why I fell out. I was disqualified.
Hmm.
Um, so, but here's the best part: you let me down gently. So that
Okay.
kind of
Oh
was
wait, did you reach out to my Instagram?
I did.
Oh, okay, God. Oh, okay. See, I have to connect. See, that was so
Yeah,
long ago. That's like ancient history. Okay, I have to bring the audience
yeah,
up to speed.
yeah. So
Okay, so for the audience, I went on. Wow, this was before I was really streaming. I went on a show called the Kendra G Show. She has a dating show that she runs. Basically, you go on, you kind of give a bit of detail about yourself, you explain the deal breakers you have and what you're looking for. And she's got an audience. I don't know. I'm going to guess she's got 1,000, 2,000 people listening to her any night. So you got an audience of people who basically see you and connect with you through your Instagram or your Facebook, and you see where things can go from there. And I went on Kendra's show. This is just over a year ago. Um, I was very nervous because I hadn't done any streaming at that point, and I didn't expect her to pick me. Everyone who comes on her show says that, but when you're doing the show, you realize that you go into a waiting room with like 10 people. So, the odds are 1 in 10 that she's going to pick you. It's not like you're just waiting in a queue. And there's nothing to show you that she picked you. It's just 1 minute you're looking at the screen, and the next minute it kind of goes transparent, and then she's there. She needs something that says you've been chosen, click the button, something like that, so that you can say, oh, okay, I got it. It doesn't happen. You're just suddenly in the show. Um, when I was on the Kendra G show, what I was explaining was, I was looking, I have a kid who's 12. I was looking for one of two things: either a woman who didn't have kids and was younger and could have them, because I was assuming, if a woman wants to come into my life and be married, she would have to have kids. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to get married. So I wanted someone who was younger, meaning they could have kids, or an older woman who may have had kids and just wanted a life partner. But in that case, I didn't want to get married. So it was, I want one or the other, but I didn't want an older woman with kids who couldn't give me any kids and was looking for a husband. Because for me at this point in my life, marriage is very specifically about kids. And if I'm not having kids with a woman, which isn't a requirement, but if I'm not having kids with a woman, I don't see the point of getting married. Sheila and I talked, and I have to go. I don't remember all the conversation. I remember we chatted, and I remember you were nice, but yeah, you had 4 kids, and I thought, oh, yeah, I will admit at that point, I'd gotten, a few hundred responses. And there was one woman who I liked a lot who didn't have kids, but she ended up being, I've never been the big player type. So I kind of said, okay, here's a woman who seems to fit what I want, and she doesn't have any kids. There's some other people, they're nice, but for one reason or the other, I kind of thought, this is the one I'll focus on. She actually came up to New Jersey, but I don't know if you saw my follow-up episode on Kendra.
I did.
Yeah, so I think she had a boyfriend back home, and she was sneaking around behind his back. She was just very weird when she was here. She was trying to avoid cameras, and
Yeah.
I wondered, like, are you doing
You
this
did.
because?
You did say that she was a little bit elusive on your date, like she was avoiding certain things. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you don't want to be filmed because you don't want somebody to find out that you're in New York this weekend, which kind of it's easy to connect those dots. You've got a boyfriend back home that you didn't tell anybody about, and you don't want him to know that you snuck up here to see me in New York. So it was just, that was all loyalty, disloyalty is pretty much a deal breaker for me. Any signs of that, and I'm done. But, part of what Sheila helped me understand, because I didn't realize that this Sheila was that Sheila, I spend a lot of time talking about dating. More specifically, I talk to guys about how if they're looking for wives, if they're looking for serious relationships, and they can't find what they want in the United States, then they should go to the Philippines. And when people ask me why, I always tell them the same basic thing. When you look at what guys want, which is generally someone who's attractive, someone who's loyal, appreciative. If you're looking for a wife, you're probably looking for someone who can give you kids. Then there are an army of women like that in the Philippines. And the beauty of it is, for Americans who go to the Philippines, it's like being Leonardo DiCaprio in the States. Leonardo DiCaprio is like 50. He's rich. He's a celebrity. He walks around. He always dates these beautiful young models. And I think the joke is that once they hit 25, he kind of trades up and he gets another young beauty.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I raise a cup to Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't because he's not. If he was married, that'd be one thing. But he's single, so I'm thinking, you know what? Long live Leonardo DiCaprio and his lifestyle. He's the next Howard Hughes potentially. When guys go to the Philippines, it's a very similar experience. Philippines has age gap dating. And all that really means is they accept a much wider gap in age than in America. In America, kind of the long end of the range is like 10 years. Woman's 25, maybe she'll go up to 35. In the Philippines, a woman who's 25 might go up to 75. I mean, they literally do not really focus on age. They are more focused on very, very traditional things. A woman wants a man who's going to be a provider, because a lot of them don't want to work. They want to be housewives. They want to have kids. They want to maintain the house. They want to know that their husband's going to take care of the bills. If they find a guy who delivers on that, and that guy is interested in them, and he's got a good personality, that's really it. I mean, you'll hear things in the Philippines where women will say things like, they don't want a guy who's too handsome, because if he's too handsome, he might cheat on them. They don't mind a guy who's sort of a homebody, because then they don't have to worry about him being out and about and chasing other women. It's, I was in the Philippines last year. That was my first trip. Won't be my last, because I really loved my experience over there. I didn't really understand it until I was there. When I was there weren't a lot of Westerners in the Philippines at all. I mean, for perspective, I was in the Ayala Mall in the Philippines, which was one of the bigger, more famous malls there. Middle of the day, maybe there were, 1,000 people in this mall. I was the only black man in the whole mall. So I stood out. Everybody's kind of noticing me. They're not bothering me, but they kind of notice. And I liked that. I liked that whole feeling of kind of being a celebrity. It's like, ooh, a black man. Who is this? You walk around and you're being noticed in a good way. And over there, I mean, the US dollar is strong to begin with. But when you go to a place like the Philippines, it's incredibly strong. They consider rich $2,000 a month. That's like lawyer, doctor money in the Philippines, $2,000 US a month. So if you're making enough money to get to the Philippines, you're probably making at least that. So over there, you're rich and can live a very comfortable lifestyle for not much money. The women, there's an advantage because you're exotic to them. And the funny thing is, the prettiest women in the Philippines are average by Philippine standards. I mean, you go there and you find a woman who's got dark skin and the long hair and is thin. That's all. Most of the women over there look like that. To you, they'll be a 9 or a 10, but in their culture, they think they're a 5. So suddenly you've got women who you think are 9s and 10s and who are interested in you and appreciate just being with you. And they also come from a culture where divorce does not exist. Divorce is illegal in the Philippines. There's a little corner of the Philippines that's Muslim. Muslim has their own like religious rule, but the vast majority of the Philippines is Christian. Divorce isn't allowed. Now, kind of bringing all of that home and talking about your question, Sheila, what led me to start talking about this? I'm divorced. A lot of the guys who are regulars on my channel are either divorced or widowed. And especially as you're older, part of what you find as a guy is women in America are asking for something that feels like a very unfair deal. You'll get women who, you'll find women who really want you to be in a rush to get married. And you're concerned because you're coming off of a divorce where you think, look, I got divorced. My wife, and I can talk about my case. I can talk about the cases of the guys who frequent the channel. I was trying to be a good and dedicated husband, and it felt like my ex-wife was just looking for the next an upgrade. So she wasn't really putting in the effort. She just wanted to find a better guy. And the problem, which is consistent, is they leave the marriage and then they realize they couldn't find a better guy. Then they realize, oh, I actually had a pretty good guy now that I understand what's on the market. But now you're ticked off because you're thinking, no, you went and slept around because you didn't appreciate what you had. And I'm not dumb enough to give you a second chance because I don't trust you anymore. That story is consistent with the guys who frequent the channel or who drop in occasionally. When I talk to guys about what they're looking for, they talk about, I want someone who's loyal. I mean, the biggest reason guys who are here is because deep down they want to be married, but they're more afraid of the divorce than they are of staying single. They don't want to get into a marriage if they've got any reservations about divorce. And I can tell you as a divorcee, after that first one, the next vetting will be 5 times longer. It's like, I got married. Apparently, I got married too quick because I didn't know what was possible here. You also kind of want to get past a lot of things that seem to be roadblocks. I think that what I hear a lot of guys talk about is they fundamentally have a pretty good marriage going until their wife gets the kids that she wanted. She wanted a kid. She wanted 2, 3, whatever her number was. She got the kid she wanted. And then the sex gets cut way, way down. And that's where things become a problem for a guy. Because you can have a wife who's nag. But as long as you're sexually satisfied and she makes dinner sometime, you're like, okay. When she's nag, and I don't get sex, and now she's not even really cooking that much anymore, you start to feel like you're getting used. And you think, well, why the heck am I still sticking around? She's getting all the bills paid. She's getting all the stuff she wants. I'm not getting anything I want. And that chases guys off. Now, if you look at the Philippines, all the things guys want basically exist there. A woman who won't divorce you. Well, if you marry her in the Philippines, you know she can't divorce you. It's illegal. I did a video about this because a lot of people would say that guys who bring their Filipina back to the States are running the risk that she'll come here and divorce you because now she's got a green card. That's actually not true. The divorce rate in the States is about 50%. If you look at guys who bring a Filipina back to America, that divorce rate's only 20%. So even if you took a random Filipina and you brought her back to the States, you're much more likely to stay married than if you married a woman in the States. You can marry a woman who's young, who can give you lots of kids, who, as long as you are okay with having a woman who probably doesn't want to work, you're fine. I mean, some people are able to transition. One of the popular professions for Filipinos is nursing. I don't know why, but they get into nursing and care. Everybody can relate to, oh yeah, the Filipino nurses. So If you want a woman who's a working woman, they seem to be a natural fit for nursing for whatever reason. It's just culturally a good fit for them, but you don't need it. I know, I know guys who've been in the States looking for serious relationships um, for months, and they can't find the kind of, let me not say a good woman because it's not a good woman. They can't find the situation that they want. There's some good women, but they've got, like, the situation is not good for the guy. These guys go to the Philippines, they meet a woman, and within a month they're engaged. Sometimes they got a kid on the way. One guy, Steve, who you were chatting with in the comment section of one of the lives, Steve's.
I thought his name was Donnie. I see a Don. There's a guy that's active. You know?
Yeah, so his screen name is Dano JYD for Junkyard Dog. Yeah, so I know, like, the guys who I talk to, the guys who are regulars on my show, it's not just I'm not just talking to a random audience. Steve and I text each other. There's another guy, David. We send texts. We trade jokes. We come on YouTube once a week so that we can kind of all get together and try to encourage more guys to become passport bros. But this is by no means the only way I connect with people. I just use this. I use this to try to put a bullhorn on the message and say, look, I can't talk to everybody at once. I can't be online every time somebody's curious. But what I can do is put this content out here so that people can say, oh, I didn't understand that the Philippines offered what it does. Oh, here's the answer to the question that I had. I mean, Steve / Dano Junkyard Dog got married to his wife when they were young. They stayed married until she passed away. He's a widower. She passed away during, she didn't pass away of COVID, but she passed away just, like, I think at the beginning of COVID or just before. I don't remember exactly when, but it's close. Steve tried to use dating apps. He didn't really have to use them before. He'd been married his whole life. Steve's a very loyal, loving kind of guy. He got 2 dates in 2 years. He's like 6'3". He's got good money. He's like semi-retired now. Because you got women in the States who become so picky. You got tons of women who are all looking for this tiny slice of men where you say, look, you got 100 women who all want the same one guy. It literally doesn't, like, the math just doesn't make sense. Like, one of you might get him. What are the other 99 of you going to do? But that's the dating market we're in. And for guys who want wives and who want to start families or who want to build families, they don't find options. And sometimes they find good women, but those women want marriage. And, like, for a guy like me, I think if you've got kids and you want marriage, I'm hesitant because I've seen divorce. I've seen what divorce looks like. My ex-wife divorced me, and I was putting in the effort. She basically divorced me because she thought she could upgrade, and it wasn't until she found out she couldn't that she changed. I've seen too much about divorce rate stats now and the reasons behind them. It's like, no, I cannot see myself taking that plunge unless it's a Filipina, because I know that she doesn't understand, like, divorce is not part of her mindset. She spent her whole life in a country where divorce does not exist. So that's like a big, long preamble to why I'm here, what I do. But yeah, I mean, any question you want to ask, you fire it off. I'm happy to have the conversation because I think it can help.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me. So my number one question was, one, I wanted you, but I did not qualify. And the way you put it, you said it's just one problem, and that's the weight issue, because you wanted a fit woman. You did mention that. You were not picking on things, but you wanted a fit woman. And you said the number one issue is the weight thing. And then I said, I've been working on that, And then you said, yeah, I mean, that's great, but weight is hard to lose.
Yes.
It's not that easy. And then you told me, go fix that and maybe I reconsider. So I went home, I went to work that night, I told the HR, and she was like, what? But then she was so pissed. But then to me, it made a lot of sense. When you added the weight is hard to lose, you understood that and you did not compromise on your requirements.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I have all these other requirements. And you're like, yeah, the weight thing is important to me. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I'm going to stick around until I lose the weight. I said, if it's taking me 2 hours, 3 hours, I mean, no, 3 days, 3 years, and 2 years, I don't know. So I did that. Lost 10 pounds. It was hard, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think, based on that, so when I came back and I said, let me see, I've been watching all your videos, all your visits to the Philippines, your time in Cebu, and you're swimming with what is it, sharks or the dolphins?
The whale
All
shark.
the whales. Yeah, it looked fun, and everything you said, your experience on the canvas show is 100% correct.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from how you narrowed down the number of women, and some didn't listen to your instructions; they just went ahead and hit you up and all that cool stuff. So,
Yes.
um, my question is. So you are completely shut down to American women, or if you met somebody before you go to Philippines, you would reconsider.
So I am not completely shut down to American women. I just don't expect to find what I want in America. That's more of, I think there are, I don't think that there are no good women in America. I'm not one of those guys.
Okay.
But I'm one of the guys who at this point says, I'm not going out of my way to try to find them anymore. Like, I'm
Mm.
going to live my life. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to basically do my thing. I don't really go out of my way to meet women anymore. If I'm at a bar because I'm watching a game and I happen to meet a nice woman, great. But the opportunities just aren't there because now that I've been, I mean, once a guy goes to the Philippines, his attitude changes drastically because you can say, "Oh, I've seen what's available now. I go to the Philippines and it's easy to meet a great woman. It's very easy. I can't tell you how many guys I've talked to at this point who've gone to the Philippines, same thing. They're going to the Philippines, they're trying to find a good relationship. Within 2 weeks, within a month, they're engaged. They meet a woman and they're like, oh, wow, this is a wife. This is what I've been looking for. And they're done. Kind of coming back to your point, I mean, part of why, when you talked about weight, part of why we talked about that was, as you mentioned, yeah, and you're reminding me of the conversation. Oh, okay, yeah. I'll give Sheila a chance to come back. This is good. I'm happy we're having this conversation. Um, um, all right. Just knock that off. Okay. So weight. Let's talk about weight and why that becomes so important. Now, physical attraction makes sense. Everybody, guys were visual. Physical attraction is a huge component of what makes us want to be in a relationship. Now, here's the thing. There are a lot of women who will say they want to get in a relationship and they'll say they want to change whatever it is that's a problem. But what I've found fairly consistently is once they have that, if you get into the relationship with them and they kind of promise that they're going to lose the weight, I've been in that position before, they never get around to losing the weight. It's like once they've got the relationship, they're like, well, you kind of accepted me like this. That means that this is okay. And you're like, no, I mean, the last woman I was in a relationship with, let's say in America, that was exactly, and it was during COVID. And She had talked about, gonna lose the weight, gonna work out, gonna this, gonna that. She's got this bicycle at home. She's got all the stuff. She's never ever got around to doing it. Kind of said, look, you kind of agreed to this, and it was always a reason to say, I'll get around to it later. Basically, she felt like she had the relationship, so she wasn't going to do the work anymore. It wasn't the only reason that we broke up, but it was part of it. It's like, no, I was serious. I am very rigid about my standards, and if women have standards, I don't have a problem with them having standards. But I also look at them and say, don't expect me to be concerned if they have a problem with my standards, because I'm going to be just as rigid with mine as they are. I don't see, YouTube is weird. On YouTube, people say they want guys who are 6 feet tall and make $500,000. But when I look at people on the street, that's not what they're looking for. Yeah, a woman wants a guy who's taller than her. She wants a guy who's got a job, who's not a bum, but kind of what they say and then what they really do are different. However, they do have standards. You do need to be gainfully employed. You do need to be taller than her. How much kind of depends. Generally, they want a guy who's somewhat handsome. They don't want a regular old guy. They want a slightly above average guy in some ways, form, or fashion. You have to say, okay, that's fine. Well, I want a slightly above average beauty in the woman who I'm with. And mine is all about physique. Face, really, I don't look at faces that much, but some of it's just the way I'm wired. If you show me a woman who has a fit body because she's put a lot of time in at the gym, I'm seeing her character because I know the dedication it takes to do that. And a woman's character means more to me than just her physical appearance. You can give me a beautiful woman with a horrible attitude. I don't want her. Give me like a fit woman, not really that pretty. Just she's got the nice body and she's working with what she's got, and it's like, okay, I can appreciate this because that translates to lots of other areas in life, and that'll appeal to me. I mean, you'll notice the woman who I was with in the Philippines was a woman named Lynn. Lynn was thin. Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, she's thin. I can work with that. Now, her problem was Lynn didn't want to move to the States. And I told her, like, I'm not moving to the Philippines. I got a kid. I live in the States. I have a job in the States. I think she was naively thinking that, she could convince me to want to move to the Philippines once I saw it. But, like, I see it. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. But this is not where I'm building my life. My life is in New Jersey. So we wanted different things, and we kind of parted ways. However, there are a lot of people in the Philippines. There are a lot of women in the Philippines who kind of similar to Lynn. Thin, supportive, childless, will have your kids, build your family, maintain the house. There's a ton of them, and you can just walk out your door, and they're all over the place over there. In America, it feels like you got to, climb Mount Everest, turn every rock over to find, otherwise it's, I made a comment in a video. I can find a woman who looks nice, or I can find a woman who's got a good attitude. But I can't get both in the same package in the States. I have to pick. Like, I want you to look good, or do I want you to have the good attitude? And if I don't want to make that compromise, it's like, well, I gotta go someplace else, go to the Philippines, because that's where it is.
Hey, I agree, but my question is, so if women in your age range, I don't know what your age range is, I forgot to ask, and they usually by now either divorced or they have kids, or you go younger than that.
Oh, okay. So it's funny. My age range in America is different than my age range would be in the Philippines, because I'm 52. So I don't expect a woman who's under 40, let's say, somewhere around there, to be interested. If a woman in the States is like 35, she probably wants a younger dude. And the problem for me is I'll meet women who are 45 can't have any kids, but they want a wedding ring. I'll think, well, I don't want to do that because if I marry you, it's not so much about the marriage, it's about the divorce. Like if I marry you and we get divorced, you can sue me for a lot of money. Been through that once. Like, And if someone's got kids, then I worry, do I have to pay for the divorce and cover the cost? Like that feels like a very expensive proposition.
Question: what if she's okay with what's the
A prenup?
thing? A prenup. Yeah. What if she's okay with that? Would you be
Here's,
willing?
here's the problem nowadays. Once upon a time, I might have said yes. I have less and less confidence in prenups nowadays because every day
They
it
get
seems like,
renewed? Do
what's
they
that?
get renewed every year?
No, I mean, every year I see some new celebrity couple getting divorced who had a prenup and the prenup gets thrown out. Like someone's determined enough, they seem to all. I don't feel like prenups work that well because it feels like more often than not, if somebody's really dedicated to trying to break it, they find a way to. Kevin Costner, Dr. Dre. I forgot that. Who was that guy? There are a bunch of some singer, and I'm just blanking on his name right now. But his wife's got a YouTube channel. Tons and tons of people are getting their prenups cracked. So I don't have confidence in a prenup. What I have confidence in, it's either don't get married so they can't divorce you, or like get married in the Philippines where again they can't divorce you. Ironclad works. I believe in ironclad. It's like I've got a guarantee that a divorce isn't possible. Short of that, I would want something as close to ironclad as possible. Now, if I go, this is hypothetical. Hypothetically, if I had a woman from the Philippines and I brought her back to the States and she was pregnant with my kid, okay. The probability that she divorces me is really low. She's here. She's a homemaker. She doesn't have the work skills. She doesn't need them. She doesn't need to worry about supporting the family because I can support the whole family. I'm not really a difficult person to live like. I'm pretty easygoing. So if you got problems with me, it's really because you got problems with you and you just need an outlet. I could do marriage until death do us part. I could do that. Finding a woman who could really do that, that's where it's tough. But she would be in a position where she wouldn't have much reason to divorce me. She wouldn't have much of a history of divorce. And it would be difficult for her because if she divorced me and she doesn't have a job and no work skills and she's older and she's got kids, well, then she's putting, there are a lot of reasons why she wouldn't want to even think about it. I did this analysis and it was funny. I was looking at the countries where divorce was highest and lowest because I just wanted to understand like what seems to be the biggest factor in people getting divorced. I was trying to do like on a global scale, and it was what it led to for me. It was simple. Divorce is highest in countries where it's easy to get divorced, and it's lowest in countries where it's hard to get divorced. It has nothing to do with morals, beliefs, any of that. It's just, is it hard for you to do it? Yes. Okay, then you tend not to. If it's easy, you tend to. So I would want a situation where the divorce was hard. And in America, everybody in America is growing up in a culture where divorce rate's 50%. Everybody can quote the stats. Divorce rate 50%. Women file for divorce 70, 80, 90% of the time. Depends on how you slice the data. It's just that's a scary, scary proposition. And especially when I meet women who want to jump straight into a marriage, I think, no. Because now I'm already nervous about whether or not you could do it until death do us, but not you specifically. Like if I'm talking to a woman, I'm already nervous about whether a woman could do until death do us part. I'm really nervous about what happens when you get the kids you want. If that's what you're in it for, how much do you change? I don't want to put myself in a position where I could end up divorced from some woman who just thinks, great, married a guy who makes good money, and I can sue him, and I can set myself up with a pretty comfortable lifestyle for the next 18 years. It's like, no, I'm not going to. That feels like a trap, and I'm just not going to fall for
Let me. I don't know if it's asking a question or saying it's making a statement, but
it. Either way.
I personally, with my last divorce, I I hate it when I hate the fact that I was one of the statistics where you married for about 10 years, then you become unhappy, and then you file for divorce. I know I did everything everybody else is doing. Um,
So
I
you
filed. I filed because I was unhappy, and then I got out there. Then I found out there was nothing out there. But
mm-hmm.
I did not go back out of respect for him. I did not go back begging because I knew I had already messed it up. Then I told myself that with the next chance I get, I will do better. I will make sure that the things that I thought I deserved, or these things that I complained and whined about, and you know how you complain about the little things, from the way he's
Mm-hmm.
snoring to him not washing the last dish, all the things that I bitched and moaned about at this time in my 40s, maybe because I'm hitting the wall, I decided they are not going to be relevant. Now, with that in mind, I also said to myself, well, if you divorce your husband and you did not take anything of his because you were not interested in money, you did not, you just carried your babies, you didn't take all the kids away. Actually, he stayed with the boys and I have the girls. So I live in this apartment with my daughters. It was fair to split them half, and then on Sunday we switched them. But in my case, I said I did not do him wrong. So God, please send me a. I did not really. I know I broke a marriage, but I did not go after the man because he did not deserve it. So with my ex, he's raising the boys as boys do well with their fathers, and I'm raising the girls. I'm trying to teach them how to be tradition because I'm African. I have African background, and I thought you had African background in you because one of your pictures on Facebook or Instagram, your mom was in a traditional African outfit. I know you have a sister, but your mom was in an outfit that looked African, and I said, "Is Mr. Bacon African?" And I was like, I don't know, but I I I still try to teach my daughters to African ways so that they could make better humans. Anywho, in the case of somebody who did not divorce or did not take their ex through the grinder and strip them naked and do all things like this, I know I didn't file for alimony. I just went and I got two jobs to survive. Um, does that is that good, or still the weight and the number of kids and all these things that have dropped my market value? They're still important to men. Is my
Yeah.
history important, or my current situation, my weight, my kids, all these things? Which one is more important?
Okay, so let's cover because there are a lot of things there. I guess. Okay, so I'm gonna. No, that's good. Let's take it in parts. So I'm gonna jump around, just easiest to hardest.
Okay.
So my ancestry. So my parents are African. My mother's from Togo. My dad's from Nigeria. Yeah. I wasn't born in Africa. I was actually born in Germany, and I grew up in the United States. So I don't have African culture in my background, but it's funny. I've got African. I've my family, my kind of if I go down my bloodline, that family name is Amoyi, and I've got the Amoyi traits. I met a cousin of mine, and she was joking around and said, "Oh, you're an Amoyi. You're clearly an Amoyi." I have a sister. One of my sisters and I have similar traits, and my daughter has similar traits. So when she was saying that, I thought, I understand what you mean because I know the features and the round face and the cheek structure, just like all in kind of under the nose. All of this is all built kind of the same. I look at my sister, I look at my daughter, I look at some of my other relatives, and it's like, oh yeah, you can see the Amoy bloodline in some of us. So yeah, I've got that. Um, Now to the, I guess I want to jump to one thing before I come to your question. You said that you got divorced because you were unhappy. Why were you unhappy?
Finances mainly.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it was finances because when he, my ex was working for ShopRite at that time, and I thought we were gonna grow. We were gonna start small and we're gonna grow, but it never happened.
He was
He
working
lived,
for ShopRite.
yeah, the mindset kind of stayed in. He did not wanna.
What kind of
So
job did he have at ShopRite? Was he
I
just
I think in the back they have a fresh food section, and he was the one frying the chicken. And I don't want to bash my ex at all because he's never done anything wrong with me to me, but I struggled with that because I felt like we were just stagnant. We were living just above broke.
okay?
So then I decided, okay, I'm not gonna be a housewife anymore because he was African American and I was African. So I wanted to prove to him, like the
Hmm.
Filipinos, that I am not here for his money. I wanted to make sure that I stay home and raise the kids, and he earns the money and he brings the bacon home and I cook it. So, but after 9 years, we were still shopping at Goodwill, so the struggle love wasn't working. So
Okay.
I decided after the third born to get back to work. To start my first job after 9 years of marriage was at Walmart, so that I could combine the family income. And so we decided to do that. We tried to move out of his mom's house, all these things. So anyway, I realized that if I stay to prove that I did not marry him for the citizenship, we're just gonna stay broke. What about I just leave and try to build a life? Because I couldn't change him. So that my reasons are very light compared to what others have been through. But I was never cheated on. I was never abused. So I would never say anything mean about him. I was just unhappy with our financial situation and how we were not going anywhere. And so I left.
So let me ask you this: if you look at the situation now versus then, would you say that post divorce it's gotten easier or harder?
Easier in the fact that I have to work two jobs, which is that's
That's
that's what I decided. That's a bed I made, right? But easier in the fact that we co-parent well, and at the same time my finances have improved. I'm able to save for my kids, and I opened college funds for the two girls. The boys, I don't know what he's doing, but I'm not pocket watching him. But I decided for the girls, I'm gonna college save for them using online investments like Fidelity banking. I decided to do all these things that I was complaining about.
okay.
Save, invest, all these things that I was worried about. But I've made it. It's just that I still have to work hard. I have no sitting down and enjoying the soft life. I work
Oh,
in a
that's a
diet.
popular idea now.
So it's
okay.
harder, but I accomplished. I'm on the way to accomplish. Now, I was laughing when you said most Filipinos tend to take on the nursing career when they come here, and that's exactly what I'm starting to be right now. So I'm starting to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's an African thing. A lot of Africans are in the nursing career as well. So yeah, I was laughing because the things you said about marrying Filipinos are kind of true with Africans as well. The only issue I have is that there is a saying that foreign women, when they stay in America for 10 years, they start to change. There's a
Sure.
shift. I don't know if it's the taste of freedom. There's a reason why in the Philippines they don't divorce as much. No, I'm just projecting. Let me
Hmm.
let me use Africa as an example. When we come here, we get divorced here in America. I don't know what it is about the 10th year. When I worked at Walmart, I was new there. This Asian man, Mr. Andrew, said, "Hey Sheila, how long have you been in America?" I said 9 years. He goes, "Huh? On the 10th year, you gonna change?" I said, "No, Mr. I said, Mr. Andrew, you're just joking. He said, I brought my wife from China and she's changed on me. She does not
Mhm.
cook. She just stares at me. And I'm like, Mr. Andrew, why are you speaking evil of your wife? But turns out I ended up doing the same thing he was talking about. He kind of called it. And I said, is this happening everywhere or is just a few cases? So, and then I have another friend of mine. He married a Filipino woman. She changed immediately. She didn't even wait 5 years in the marriage. She took him through the worst. And this is an isolated case, so it's not all Filipinos. But we disliked her for that because he made about 5, 6 trips to the Philippines. He was in his 60s. He was like 63. He married her. We watched the wedding online. We were so happy for him.
Mhm.
And then when he brought her here, she went to school for nursing, but she became a lab, the people that take the blood.
Oh, okay. The lobotomy?
Yeah,
No, not
yeah,
lobotomy.
yeah,
Phlebotomy. Yeah.
phlebotomy. Yes, thank you. So she did that, but while she was there, when she started school there, she completely changed, and she was more vocal about it because she kept posting online
Hmm.
and tearing him down. And she said, "This man, he can't even perform in bed. This man, he's this."
Oh, wow.
And and we held our faces. We said, "No, you're not doing this." She was more outspoken. She wasn't the quiet one. And so she would pause and then she accused him of all these things. We're like, no, we know this guy for many years. He's a quiet man. I don't think he's abusive. So she kept posting. Some of us we became so hurt that we unfollowed her because she was not stopping.
Mm-hmm.
She Not one case I realized, okay, there's exceptions because she changed on him about 2 years in the marriage because he used to take on trips. They would go, she would film everything. She filmed everything. But when she started um, attacking him, we stopped following her because it
Sure.
brought so much sadness to us that he did all these trips to Philippines only to end up with a bad one, that changed, But my question is now, are men scared of two things? The change, the switch up at 10
Mm-hmm.
years for foreigners, and the other one is that, and these women in the Philippines expecting you guys to come. Are they ready for you? Are they noticing? Haven't you muddied the waters? Haven't you notified them that, yeah, there's American men coming for wives, so they're stationing themselves. The bad ones are stationing themselves to be found. Aren't you worried about that?
So, no. So, great questions. Let's kind of jump into. Let's sort of tackle it. Let's start in the U.S. and then let's talk about the Philippines. Okay. Not all marrying a Filipina is, if you bring her back to the state, heck, even if you stay in the Philippines, it's not a guarantee by any means, and I wouldn't tell that to anybody. But I talk about the probabilities. If you marry her and you stay in the Philippines, there is no divorce, so you can at least check that box. If you bring her back to the States, it's only a 20% divorce rate. So there are divorces happening when you come here. But to me, it's not about the 20%. It's about looking at 20% versus 50%. Half the marriages if I married an American woman, half the time that's going to go wrong. If I marry a Filipina, only 20% of the time. So we're talking about 5 out of 10 getting divorced versus 2 out of 10 getting
Yeah.
divorced. Yeah, that's a big difference. Um, and the divorce, there's no, I haven't seen a silver bullet for how to pick, but from what I've seen, just my personal observations, you're at risk if you bring a Filipina back, you haven't known her that long, and she doesn't have a kid on the way. If you've built something with her, if you're having a family with her, then you've kind of built that foundation and her traditional instincts seem to kick in more likely. And you can say, okay, more likely to be loyal. Now, as far as kind of acclimating, that's just human nature. And if you go, You can take anybody, put them in a new culture, they will slowly assimilate to that culture. It's hard to avoid. I've traveled around. I spent a few weeks in France, and yeah, I start approaching certain issues more like a French person than I normally would, just because I'm in that culture and it's easier to interact with people kind of using that similar cultural framework.
Mhm.
Now, as far as Filipinas in the state, going to the Philippines and finding women and getting bad women, yeah, there's a risk. I mean, let's be honest. There is no guarantee in the Philippines, but what we are talking about is a country in the Philippines. So let me frame this up the way guys look at it. If I'm in the States, I don't really expect women to appreciate me for me. I expect them to just look at how much money does this guy make? How tall is he? How luxurious is the lifestyle that he's bringing me? And that's like, I don't fault him for it, but that's my expectation. This woman wants to know financially what sort of a benefit I am to her. If I go to the Philippines, I think there's still that same expectation. How much of a financial benefit can I get? But over there, they actually appreciate it. I mean, in the States, you got women who are screaming for big, expensive dates. And they're like, you got to start off with all these big, expensive dates before I decide whether or not I even like you. I just think, well, no, I'm not going to spend any, like, if I don't know if you like me or not, I'm not spending any money on you. Like, that, to me, that's dumb. Like, I'll wait, find someone who does like me, and then I'll do nice things for them. Philippines is the opposite. If they don't like you, they don't seem to want, unless they're a scammer, if they don't like you, they don't seem to want to get involved with you. They just like, not my type. Don't want to go down that road. Now the scammers are there, but even the scam in the Philippines is different. So you have to kind of understand the Philippines culture. In America, the scam seems to be how much can I exploit this guy for? I want to take as much money from him as I can, get as much luxury out of him as I can, and then I want to skedaddle. You hear sprinkle, sprinkle is like one of the big popular things now, and all she tells women is, get as much money out of a guy as you possibly can without giving much in return. She's got thousands of people tuning into her whenever she does an episode because they like to listen to that message. The Philippines scam is different. The most traditional. Another two. I'm going to focus on live versus. We'll come back to online. Online's different. Here's the Philippine scam. A young woman who's like 20, and maybe she has a kid because she was out there having her fun, and she knows that her prospects for a husband are slim to none in the Philippines. Because those guys are all going to look and say, you've already got a kid. I'm not marrying you. That's their culture. Like, I'm not marrying you. You're a single mom. She can find a rich old man from America who's like 75. And the scam is she'll marry him and she'll treat him well for his last 10 years. She's marrying him because he's old. And she's thinking, you got what, maybe 10 years left? So I've just got to be a good wife for 10 years. You die, you leave me enough money in your will that I'm set for life. From 20 to 30, she's being a wife to some old guy, and then she's rich. And then the latter part of her life, she's gone from being broke with a kid and struggling to living the high life. So the scam for a guy, I was having this conversation with my brother. As far as you're concerned, hey, for the last 10 years of my life, I had this great wife. Maybe secretly she didn't like me, but she never showed, as far as what I saw an appreciative woman who took care of me in my last 10 years. And I left her a chunk of cash, and now she's going to go off and enjoy herself. I'm happy. She's happy. That works. Some guys get scammed because they're dumb. I mean, just they're dumb. They'll know someone, maybe they've seen them once for a week, and the next thing you know, they're buying them a house, a $50,000 house. They're not going to see them again for a year, and the woman leaves. The woman's like, "Oh, you bought me a house, $50,000. It's in my name. Bye." There are people right here in the Philippines to date. Why am I going to wait a year for you? That kind of stuff. I've seen guys talk about that, but I think, why'd you buy a woman a $50,000 house when you only knew her for a week? Like, make that make sense. Those sorts of things happen. If you're willing to cultivate a relationship, the likelihood that that relationship's going to end up bad is low. It's incredibly low when you compare it to what can go wrong in the States. In the States, guys have an incredible amount of apprehension about relationships in the States. It's headache upon headache. I mean, I can say from my own personal experience, I know tons of nice looking women who would like to go out with me. They all have bad attitudes, and I don't trust a single one of them because I know that most of them, they see the car I drive, or they figure out the neighborhood I live in, and they're like, "Oh, you own property in this neighborhood, you drive this car, you work in this industry, you make money. Sure, I'll go out with you because I want you to spend that money on me." But as far as I'm concerned, there's not much actual benefit to dating a woman like that because she's just going to be a big old expensive headache, and I'm not looking for that.
I agree because I actually heard somebody say that women in America are difficult to love, and it tugged on my heart. I was like, no.
It's true. It's when you look at, I mean, no.
Men
Yeah,
are saying, men are
oh,
saying
I
that.
completely agree. I think part of it is guys want to walk into relationships ready to give, but also ready for a woman to give back. And that's not at all what relationships in America feel like. Relationships in America literally feel like this. It feels like women are browsing and they're like, "Okay, you're interesting right now. I'll hang out so long as you're my best option. But the second I've got a better option, you're gone." So it feels like you are constantly being scrutinized by someone who's saying, "Are you the best thing I can get?" And you get tired of it. It's like you're like, "I don't want to play that game. I want someone who's loyal," and that's not loyalty at all. Um, I mean, my ex, there's another guy named David who's in my channel. His ex, lots of guys' ex, it's always the same thing. They either had some guy that they thought was going to be an upgrade, or sometimes they just thought they could go out there and do better. And they didn't realize that it's like, you're older, you've got kids, you're heavier. Like, no, you're not going to do better. Right? Like, the things that were your selling points aren't your selling points anymore. And you get stuck in this situation where you say, "You know what? You had a good situation, you just didn't and I'm not talking about you specifically."
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's just the situation where you look at a woman and say, "You had a good situation, but you didn't appreciate it. You had to go out and bang your head." But the problem is now the guy you're with doesn't trust you, and you're like, trust is destroyed. Like, you will never get a chance to stab me in the back again. Like, you stabbed me in the back once because I didn't know that I needed to be watching for you. Now, like, you're in the same camp as all of my enemies, and I got my eyes on you because I don't want to leave myself vulnerable to that again.
Do you think that do you guys ever worry that the foreign women, Africans, Filipinos, all these other cultures, when they're brought to America, they will not find communities of their own people. Then they get connections, and then before you know it, she's leaving the house at 11 p.m. This is me just I'm just
Sure.
assuming these things. I'm thinking I've heard cases whereby she's brought to America, she's good for a minute, and then she finds other people in her community. Then she starts being weird and elusive, and then she starts picking up your calls, receiving texts and phone calls in the middle of the night. This is not me. I was too busy having kids. But I've heard of cases where men have lost their wives, their international wives, to these already set communities that they found.
Hmm.
Isn't that a worry?
So, all right, it's not a worry for me. I can see it being it could potentially be a worry for some people, but it kind of goes down to there are ways to get around that. Some are easier versus harder. Number one is if you're planning to have a family and she's busy having kids, you're kind of insulated. Give her a bunch of kids and she's going to be a mom, and she's not going to have time to run around and be wild. Like, okay, so that's one option.
Yeah.
The other option, now for me, I live in, New Jersey. I live in Hoboken.
I know Hoboken. You did tell us that you are in Hoboken. Yes.
Yeah. So Manhattan, New York, the Bronx is very close. There's a huge Filipino community in the Bronx. So if she needs kind of community, she needs a Filipino community, and she was here, it's not hard for her to get integrated to kind of say, okay, once or twice a week, you go up to some sort of an event in the Filipino community. And you just want to make sure you know the kinds of event, like, okay, like find the Christian women's events, something like that. So you're with a group of women where, like if you're partying, no, that's not happening. If you're going to like some sort of church thing, fine. I'm not too worried about that. I understand like their focus. If anything, they're going to be telling you how to be a good wife, not how to be out in the streets. We also look at kind of technology and where we are today. It's easier now. Like if I brought a woman there's a guy, it's kind of funny. I was watching this Judge Judy episode. It's about this black man brought a Filipino woman. Let's say he's about 40 and he married this Filipina. She was like 19. Brought her to the States. Now, this was about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, early Judge Judy episodes. And I get it. It's like, hey, I got this beautiful young woman. He wanted a wife. He wasn't finding what he wanted in the States. He had a beautiful young wife. She's 19. She's never left the Philippines. She doesn't have friends here. So what does she do? She calls her mom a lot. She's on the phone with her mom talking. She's running up this phone bill because, this was back in the day. So she's got this big old phone bill and he gets mad about it. But I thought, you brought her over, but you didn't really have a plan for helping her to stay connected to people. While you're at work, she's at home by herself. What do you expect her to do? Nowadays, you've got WhatsApp, you got YouTube. You can bring a woman to the States and she can basically stay in contact with her whole family. So she doesn't necessarily feel completely disconnected. Like, you know what? Get on WhatsApp. Doesn't cost me anything other than my internet per month. Talk to your mom on WhatsApp however often you want. Build a YouTube, do some YouTube thing. It's very easy to stay connected with people. So I'm not as worried. I wouldn't be as worried about her feeling isolated because there's just a lot of ways for her to stay in touch with the people she cares about. But if all I needed to do was buy her mom a cell phone so that they could do WhatsApp, so it's like, okay, here's a little $200 phone. Great. Now you and your mom can talk back and forth. You don't feel lonely when I'm at work. We're good.
Yeah, but WhatsApp is one of the ways people can hide relationships and all these extracurricular activities. Because you can't trace those messages and phone calls through your bill. So I think that women tend to use those to connect with other characters when they find these communities in the state. That's my biggest fear. Her coming here and then behaving funny with the guy that brought her to America. Of course,
Let
I
me
didn't do any of that.
So let me
Yeah.
interject something because part of what you're saying, it's funny what you're saying. I mean, to your point, yeah, if somebody wants to cheat, they can cheat. If they really want to cheat, it's hard for you to stop them. But you're doing something that I find very common in Western culture that I don't find as common in the Philippines. Western women have a suspicion about relationships. And when they talk about them, they talk about a lot of the ways that a relationship can fail. This can happen, that can happen, these problems. When Western women hear guys talking about going to the Philippines for wives, they always approach it from the standpoint of how it can fail. You're trying to manipulate a woman, you want someone you can control, you this, you that, they'll get agreement. It never dawns on them that the relationship could work, that this could be a good and healthy relationship. Part of what I like about the Philippines is I don't really see that in the women over there. I've seen women in the Philippines where I thought that's not a good woman. There's no way I would want to date a woman like that. There was a woman who was walking. Now she was pretty. She was walking around with a guy. The guy she was with was maybe 75. So they were in the mall, and he's holding her hand, but he's ahead of her. She's walking behind him, and she's giving me a look of interest while she's holding this guy's hand. I guess she's thinking, hey, I'd rather upgrade to you than be with this guy. But I thought, I don't do disloyalty. Like, you basically just wrote yourself off. Any woman who would trade up from a guy whose hand she's holding, if you're trading up, I'm not interested. If you're trading up from a guy whose hand you're holding, I'm really not interested. So there are some bad ones over there. But a lot of the women over there, they're young, they want to get married, they want to have kids. They're not out clubbing, they're at home with their families, and all of that works to tell me that, oh, this is the kind of person who could actually do it till death do you part. This is the kind of person who's not going to get bored, because that's just not her mindset. Her mindset isn't, I'm here as long as you're interesting, and the second you're not, I'm gone. It's like, no, I'm here. I'm here for as long as it takes. If we got to fight, if we got to have timeouts, whatever we got to do, we're in this, and we're going to do it until we're dead. The Philippines is there are only two countries in the world, the Philippines and Vatican City. Only two countries in the world that don't have divorce. And I don't speak Italian, so Vatican City is not like, okay, I don't feel like learning Italian to go to Vatican City when I can just go to the Philippines.
Well, I guess you explained it all for me. I guess the one thing that men desire in a wife or a partner is that traditional component that the Filipino women have, and the loyalty. Maybe I don't know if I'm correct, but from what
So
you're saying, I think that's important to you guys.
loyalty for sure. Loyalty is, guys are looking for loyalty, and that's one of the big problems is you're looking for loyalty and you're just not finding it. You're finding women who basically are saying, I'm with you until I find an upgrade. I think traditional gets a bit overblown. I wouldn't say traditional so much as I would say appreciative. If I'm working, and so hypothetically, if I was married, I'm working and my wife's working, I'm not going to expect that when we get home, she's responsible for cooking dinner. Like, you worked just as hard as I did. Okay, we're both sharing in the bills. We can both share in the chores. But appreciation, it goes a long way, because, like, going back to my ex-wife, we both worked, but I paid more of the bills than she did. She kind of thought, she had this, oh, well, guys, the husband should pay more of the bills. And I thought, well, if I'm paying more of the bills, you need to do something to compensate for the fact that I'm paying more of the bills. In her mind, like, she wanted work to count, like, hey, I'm putting in just as many hours in the office as you are. But my mind was, I don't care. You're not paying half the bills. I'm paying more of the bills, so that doesn't count. You got to step up and balance this out. Appreciation can look a lot of ways. It can be you don't work, so you take care of the house, and that balances it out. It can be we both work equally, so we find a way to kind of cobble together a lifestyle that we both work that works for both of us. But what appreciation is not is she just complains about getting everything done her way and I'm just supposed to do it. That's where you're like, no, I want stuff too, and I need to feel like your needs and my needs are getting met, or I got a problem. So that's like the appreciation's kind of like appreciation, it's kind of balance. It's just everybody's balance is like what I want, what the next guy wants could be a little bit different. But generally, I mean, we're guys. We always hear it, guys are simple. We want something that makes sense. Like I'm contributing, you're contributing. We feel like we're both kind of putting in the same effort. Okay, as a guy, I'm happy. That's cool. If I'm contributing all this stuff and I feel like you're not really doing much, and you just keep asking for more and more and more, that's when I start to get angry and say, well, why should I keep putting effort in? You're not putting effort in.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Bacon, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for explaining these things to me. I wanted to pick your brain about why Philippines though. So you've explained it well. I did not know if you're open to African women or you just have a preference for Filipino women. I wanted to know what was so special about them compared to Africans. But you did explain it all, and I thank you. I thank you for taking time, even though it was a Trump versus Biden war thing yesterday.
Oh yeah, that's my. I'm still gonna do more Trump Biden. I love talking about that.
Oh,
I hope you keep
thank you,
coming out, Biden.
and I'm learning so much from the Trump Biden topics. You're doing a great job. I thank you for teaching us and giving us your viewpoints on these two political parties. I enjoy them. I enjoy them.
Thank you. I like to hear that.
Well, have a good day, Mr. Bacon.
All
Thank
right.
you again.
Thank you. Oh, do you mind if I put any of this on shorts clips?
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
I don't.
Good deal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye. Okay. So tonight's episode kind of went in a slightly different direction. I mean, the idea was, will you use your passport in 2024? And I'm planning to use mine like June or July. I'm planning to go back to the Philippines. I love it there. But in tonight's show, Sheila called in because she wanted to understand why guys are using their passports. Like, why aren't guys just staying in the United States and looking at the women here? And ultimately, the answer was, well, number one, it's hard to find what you want in the States. It's hard to find loyalty and appreciation in the States. It just doesn't really seem to exist. But you can go over to the Philippines and you can find it on any street pretty much any day of the week. So for a guy who's serious about wanting a relationship, a commitment, you can go to the Philippines and you can find it and you can kind of check that box in a month. Or you can stay in the States and spend years banging your head against the wall. You know, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. At some point, it becomes insane to look for a good woman in the States, unless you are 6 feet tall, make a $200,000 a year, beautiful, fit, and already dating a bunch of beautiful women so that this woman feels like she's, winning out against the masses. It's very easy for a guy to get what he wants if he's willing to put the effort in. Some people will, some people won't. I talk to guys all the time. Guys who are complaining about their situation, I tell them the same thing: get your passport, go to the Philippines. I invite them to the channel to say, look, if you come to the channel, I can show you step by step how you can get to the Philippines, and you can get what you want. Oh, and I need to tie. I lost the. There was a point that I lost, which was I started this. This will be how I close. I started the show off with a video. It showed Dominic Thiem beating Alexander Zverev in the 2020 U.S. Open. There's a little bit of backstory to that. Dominic Thiem won his first and only Grand Slam that night. Dominic Thiem won because Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, and Rafael Nadal weren't there. Federer and Nadal, I believe, were out with injuries in that Grand Slam. Djokovic was in it, but he got disqualified because he smacked one of the support staff with a tennis ball when he was frustrated about something, and he got booted. Thiem competed, and he got to the place where he was able to win. And that's kind of the thing that kind of lost. I partly lost my point, but that's part of the thing for guys is you got to get out there and you got to compete and you've got to want it. Because if you're not going to get it if you don't go after it. The heavens aren't going to open and just drop a Filipina in your lap. You got to go and you got to do the work. Are you willing to do the work? Do you actually want this relationship you're saying, or do you just want to complain about it? Some people just seem to want to complain, and if that's what floats your boat, live your life. That's just not how I am. I actually want to see results, and the results are in the Philippines. So you want to talk about it, you're considering it, but you got questions. That's what we're here for. Step on up. Happy to help. Slash Good Man in Jersey, signing out.